Can we finish this with Star Wars?
Yes.
This is what we turned to after we both unanimously agreed that we didn't care about Bernie Madoff.
We're going to move on to something else we don't care about.
Star Wars. But you watched all of them.
I realized when I watched all of them, though, that they are pretty trashy.
So I watched, what was it called? A New Hope?
Yeah,
the
the first
original one, which was not called A New Hope when it came out. It was just called Star Wars, right?
I think it was called A New Hope.
I think they added
What do you
A New
know,
Hope
dude?
later on.
What are you a Star Wars fan fiction?
No, they did, because they didn't realize it was even going to become a series.
But it was they'd already established that the prophecy about what was going to save the Force. You're just
Well, they
shaking your head like I'm wrong.
retroactively added the name that made sense.
All right,
but
it was
when
Star
it came
Wars.
out, I'm pretty sure it didn't have the New Hope, because I had to look it up. Because when you go to Disney Plus and you're looking at the movies, they're in the order that, you know, chronologically in the actual timeline of Star Wars they came out. So
Yeah.
you have to skip past like 3 or 4 of them to get to the first one that you're supposed to watch. I had to look it up on my phone to make sure that I was going to watch in the right order, because I remember trying to watch Star Wars probably when I was in 5th grade and thought it was fucking boring, and I turned it off. And I don't think I've tried since. And I have this thing in my head where it's like I watch so much niche content on the internet that I feel is probably not really that beneficial to me, because it's like once you've watched 800 different poker stream videos, it's just like, this might be helping me understand the game better, but it's not really helping my ability to have conversations on camera. Whereas if I watch any random movie and then I'm doing a podcast and the person I'm talking to happens to have seen the movie too, we might have a 20-minute conversation about the movie. Now, granted, that's a little limiting for the audience, because the audience, you know, we're going to have to do a good job explaining it. And a lot of times if you have conversations about movies that you've both seen and the audience hasn't seen it, it's like they don't give a fuck. But in general, like increasing your pop culture awareness is probably a good thing as a podcast. Just so a lot of times I'm trying to think more in that direction. Like instead of watching the 800th poker stream video, let's watch something that everybody will know about. So I put on Star Wars, and even when I got tempted to turn it off, I stuck through it and I watched it, and I can now say it was stupid and I hated it, and I don't think I'm going to watch the rest of them, even though I would like to, but it was really hard for me to sit through.
Yeah.
It was boring.
Yeah, what do you think about that, Mikey boy, Mr. I know definitively what the title of the first Star Wars is?
This is my main thing. Like, there's this end scene in A New Hope where, you know, they all suit up in these little fighter planes, right? Yeah. And they they put on these orange jumpsuits, which if you go back to like old school movie making, this is how you like convince the audience that they were now dealing with a new scene, is like, oh, now we have orange shirts. And so they take off and they have to destroy the Death Star or whatever. And I'm watching it, and without even consciously trying, I'm pulling on my phone, I'm looking at shit on my phone and stuff, because it's just like for 15 minutes, 20 minutes in the movie, there's no narrative being advanced. It's just special effects. They're flying the plane. It's just, oh, look at that. Look what happened. That thing blew up, and now this blew up. And it's just, there's like nothing being added to the storyline during that time period. And I literally like pick up my phone and look at it for 15 minutes and then put it down, and then the scene ends and I missed nothing because I already knew how it was going to end. And the narrative didn't get pushed at all. And I don't know. I've always had such a hard time watching movies that I feel like are getting by on special effects, which when you read about Star Wars and why it was so popular, it's largely because of the special effects, which were amazing. And I know that they like remade it a lot of times over the years, but I don't know, man.
It's the original Star Wars. I loved them when I was a kid because that imaginative environment was so new to me. And I think that's why it was so appealing early on, because that was so new. And maybe the original Star Wars trilogy is more important than it is good. Sort of like if you listen to a Bill Cosby or a Lenny Bruce record from the 50s and 60s, you don't really enjoy it. You can appreciate the craft that went into it and that it was the first of its kind doing these things, but you don't love it like you would love a Dave Chappelle or Louis C.K. set from today.
Because it's not topical. It's jokes that now seem very, very redundant or you know, dated. Yeah,
or it's referencing some sort of protest or strike that's going on. But also, George Lucas is from Modesto. And what are we expecting from a guy who wrote a movie who's from Modesto?
I don't know.
Do you know where Modesto is?
Not enough to judge.
Modesto is, I'm trying to think how I would describe it to a West Coaster. It is, Well, it is a bumfuck farm town, which I'm sure has a lot of meth and gas station robberies.
Well, I'm sure other people have accomplished things from these places, right?
There's actually a startlingly high amount of important people that come from Modesto. Can you pull a list up? Jeremy Renner, a bunch of NFL players.
Who almost died recently.
Did he?
Yeah, he was involved in a terrible, what was this, a snowmobiling accident? Skiing accident? Yeah.
I bet he was, that queer. Jeremy, I'm very glad you're still with us, buddy. He's some fucking hick from Modesto. I actually read recently a little magazine on the making of the first Star Wars, and everybody involved with it was super dismissive as they were doing it because he basically he had no clout yet in the industry. He'd made American Graffiti. You know that movie? It's about a bunch of kids that are trying to get pussy. They race cars.
I heard about it, but no.
So he made that, and it was pretty well received. So he had a little bit of juice, but not much. So basically, all like his director of photography, all the people who were doing the lighting and sound, they're like, hey, who is this fucking kid making this movie? Like, they kept calling the Wookiee the dog. They're like, yeah, let's get the dog thing over here and try that shot again. The guy, Ben, Obi-Wan Kenobi, hated it. He thought the dialogue was terrible. He thought George Lucas was a hick. He wanted nothing to do with the project.
It was like Pinkerton.
Did the people who produced Pinkerton hate it?
No, but well, yeah, eventually because the fans hated it so much.
Mm-hmm. The band hated it for a while too.
They wouldn't play it for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, that's how Ben Kenobi was like Rivers Cuomo.
But it's actually totally unlike that because Pinkerton was like generally unpopular when it came out, whereas Star Wars was this gigantic success when it came out.
Immediately.
My thing is, yeah, I don't know. It was just, for me, it was tough to get through. It felt like, even just the first scene, it's like, okay, so there's this empire and then there's this rebel alliance or whatever. And the way that they're doing battle in space is that somehow one ship connects to another ship and all these stormtroopers run in with these ray guns that shoot these red beams. Never at any point in any of this do you see what the red beams do to anyone. Mm-hmm. They just like bounce around, or if they hit you, I guess it's just like a push or something. Mm-hmm. Like nothing happens. Mm-hmm. And I just refuse to accept that this is how intergalactic space warfare would take place, is that people would be raiding each other's spaceships. It's like, no, we know how this plays out. You're going to blow each other up. You're not going to go get on there and try to invade and see what's going on.
Yeah, one ship fucks the other ship. Basically. And then a bunch of extras run at each other and shoot little pew-pews.
But then R2-D2 and the other guy just hop into this little pod and they take off, and for some reason they're in the desert.
Very convenient, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I remember the second one. I watched.
But they just know how to do that.
Yeah, they got it all. It's all figured out.
I know I'm not supposed to be taking all this like literally, but it left a lot to be desired from me. But they're saying The Empire Strikes Back is a lot better, so I'm kind of wondering if I should do that. But also, you should watch Kids, because I would love to talk about that movie on here.
Is that the skate movie?
It's not the usual kind of movie about kids that you watch.
This isn't children's.
It is skate adjacent. Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
It's what's the term? I want to make sure I never call anything child porn again.
We're gonna have to look it up.
Okay, sure. We don't want to be insensitive.
CSM. I don't know.
Okay, that's my homework assignment.
I think
to watch
it's CSM,
Kids.
Child Sexual Material, or something like that. So that's what we're going to try to get you to stay away from.
I thought you were assigning me homework for this week.
No.
Okay, so I'm going to watch Kids.
And I'm going to watch Empire Strikes Back.
I watched that too with my dad. That one was equally. It didn't hold up because that's the one that everybody jerks off to. Everybody's like,
really?
Oh, The Empire Strikes Back. It's the best one.
I was waiting for Luke, I am your father the whole time.
Yeah, you're going to have to wait till Empire Strikes Back.
That's why I started to think about that during this conversation, yeah.
But also that one, too. Like, Luke's got to go get trained in The Empire Strikes Back, and he just, like, his ship just fucks up, and he crash lands on a planet. He's looking for Yoda, and he happens to crash land directly into the right spot, and Yoda's like,
into my backyard you have fallen on your X-Wing fighter. Now we must train you.
I'm like, how plausible is that?
I have another complaint. Luke Skywalker... His aunt and uncles are all incinerated.
They get incinerated.
Doesn't shed a tear. Doesn't really show almost any emotion at all. He decides that he now believes in the Force. But that's another thing is like, why do I care about this Force? They're talking about how magical it is the whole time. I'm like, okay, you have this stupid Force that you've created for this movie. Why am I supposed to care about it?
Yeah, and it's also like it's very like Christian. The imagery is very Christian. The Force is power of prayer.
Hey, we're in the future and we have these like this amazing technology, but somehow when me and you fight, we're both going to produce these like glowing beams and just sort of bing, bing, and they just whack it.
It's sort of gay, right?
It's just so stupid.
It's like the gay is cut like bright green and red.
Right.
It's like I don't know, Jolly Rancher colored, and just the imagery of two cocks clashing against each other.
Right.
While these dudes are wearing capes and speaking in English accents.
I kept thinking about technology and how our current world compares to Star Wars, though, when I was watching it. Like at a certain point, R2-D2 like sends this like he's carrying this message with him, and it's Princess Leia explaining shit to Luke Skywalker, and he sort of like beams it and creates this visual, and I'm like, well, that's basically like a phone. Like he recorded a video, and then now we could just do that with this, and we don't need like a big trash can just sort of clunking around the whole universe.
Hanging out with a fucking thing that looks like a human and is completely gold.
There is no. Like, there's violence and there's shit blowing up, but you never see somebody, like, dismembered. Oh, no, there's, like, a fight in the bar, and he, like, cuts somebody's arm off for talking shit to him.
I think that's Greedo.
With the lightsaber. Boom, cuts the arm off.
You're right, though. The only people who really get fucked up are Uncle Owen and Aunt whatever her name is.
Right.
And you're right. Like, that is... I mean, you and I got a lot of shit this week for being unkind or being insensitive about house phone. But I mean, Luke Skywalker, dude, you're right. Just jets out of town.
He walks up. They're incinerated. They're burning, smoldering corpses are just sitting there. And he's just kind of like, all right, well, fuck this shit. I'm gonna go do battle with y'all.
Did he even bury him? Because I feel like Jawas or sand people probably came by and fucked their corpses.
I liked, at a certain point, I already knew it was going to happen because I'm like so familiar with like the sort of tropes that have maybe evolved from Star Wars that I'm watching Han Solo be this like cold-hearted dude who's a bounty hunter, and he's not going to go help them do battle or whatever. And then it just so happens that he grows a heart and he actually shows some character development and he does it. But it's like, I feel like I've watched too many other movies that basically like parody or are based on that, that it was like, oh, I remember this from a lot of other cinema.
They in the magazine I read, like sometimes when I'm at airports, because I have the same mindset you do that I need to learn new stuff for podcasting and for videos. So I bought one of those thin airport magazines on Star Wars. George Lucas said that moment when Han Solo comes back to help them at the Death Star, he said when he first watched a test screening, he told himself, if the audience doesn't cheer when Han Solo comes back at the Death Star, the movie doesn't work and my career's over.
Right.
He knew that if it didn't work out there and nobody cheered or got excited, that none of the movie made sense. There was no emotional resonance and he was done. And he said in the 70s, when that test screen for the first time, he said the audience was going insane when Han Solo finally came back. Probably because the whole thing, like I'm not here to save you and the princess, kiddo. I'm here to save my own hide with my Wookiee. Like that tough outlaw kind of guy who ends up developing a heart has become so cliche since then. But at the time, that was, a unique element of storytelling, maybe.
Yeah, I feel like Empire Strikes Back. Now, having had this conversation, I actually am kind of excited to watch it. But I was trying to look up like good Star Wars meta. I want to find like the beige frequency of Star Wars, something that'll really be deep in there and like tell me all the weird stuff that's going on that I don't know about. Because like, isn't Star Wars supposed to be like a metaphor for trans people or something? Or like,
there's no way that's true.
Or was that like Game of Thrones?
There's no way that's true, dude.
Or isn't it about communism or something?
It was definitely about totalitarianism.
Okay.
Or I mean, maybe it was commenting on America too, like the America and like England's imperial desires.
I always have to like watch the movie and then and consume it just as what's going on screen, and then sort of pull back and like try to think about, oh, okay, this is all about society. It's just taking place in space.
The new ones are probably, because there's been 3 trilogies, and the newest set of trilogies where like the chick was the lead and like the stormtroopers are black, that was probably about trans ideology. Yoda probably came like,
young Padawan, before I can graduate you, announce your gender. You must.
I like how all roads end with trans people in this podcasting environment we've created here.
The doctor makes guess he does at gender at birth. Your true gender you find after you complete your training.
We should make a trans Star Wars.
Much money we will make.
This has been a clip from my new podcast, Sledge Lords with Danny Mullen. We're dropping a new episode every week, so either hit the link in the description or search up the Adam22 channel on YouTube. Appreciate you guys.